Welcome everyone. So for this webinar, I don't know if it was the first of the year or not, but here is Audrey from the French Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very pleased to wish you a happy new year for this 2016. Today the topic is about how to ensure quality control in China, the quality control of your products, and to talk about this really challenging topic, because as you know, China is the world's factory, so it's not always easy to know how to control your providers. We invited Clotilde Deneve from Vimex. Clotilde has been working for Vimex since 3 years, and she's now an expert of how to actually control the quality of the products you want to purchase here in China. So I will give the floor to Clotilde and welcome her here for this webinar. Thanks, Clotilde.
Thank you very much, Audrey. Hello, thank you for listening. So I'm gonna start very quickly by the agenda. So I will explain to you who are Vimex China, the company I'm working for. Then I'm gonna give you a small introduction to China and the manufacturing world in China. And then we're gonna go straight to the subject, so an overview of the quality control and how to choose your factory, so the importance of a factory audit, and once you decided who you want to work with, how to do business with them, so how to do business in China. So the first one, Vimex China. So Vimex have been founded in 2008 in Beijing. And we are basically a sourcing company. That means we help our customer to identify the right factory, to negotiate price, to define the term to work with the suppliers. Then we do some audit factory and organize some visit in China if needed, if you actually desire to visit the factory. And once you've decided to pass the order, we negotiate prices for you, check the manufacturing process, do the quality control, and finally organize the shipment. Then I will show you briefly the purchase process to help you to understand and make it easier. But basically what you have to understand is that a sourcing company take care of most of the purchasing process. So then your team have time to focus on sales. And you don't have to take care of that anymore. I will explain you later that working with people in China most of the time save you time and money. So our team is made with European and Chinese staff, and we will see later that it's very important to understand both culture to work in China. So then China is defined usually as the world's factory. So Chinese economy is changing and the country is developing. So Chinese salaries are increasing, tertiary industry is getting bigger, and China is facing competitors from all around the world for manufacturing, especially here in Asia, as a lot of competitors from Southeast Asia. But the manufacturing industry in China still has a bright future. Due to its long manufacturing industry history, China has a very a better experience than the other cheaper new countries. The population is better trained, people are high skilled, the factories are bigger and highly occupied comparing to Southeast Asia. So they are still able to make complicated technical products that most of the countries cannot yet, obviously. So China is probably going to still be the world's factory for a couple of years, probably a couple of decades. Obviously, the most important thing is to identify your needs, to see if it actually applied to China, if it's actually adapted to buy in China, or if you need to buy somewhere else. In 2010, China became the world's largest manufacturing country ahead of USA. So they dethroned USA for the first time. In numbers, it means 19.8% of the manufactured goods in 2010 came from China against 19.4% for USA. That means basically 1,995 billion USD. So if you are buying from European supplier, there is a very high probability that those products already come from China. Buying here is often the opportunity to avoid European intermediaries. So here you have just a map for you to have an idea of what is made in China and where. So it may help you in the future to identify the suppliers and to be sure where you should go to find those suppliers. As you can see, basically factories are all around China, but mostly all Eastern China, the developed part of China, bigger cluster around Shanghai. But basically, when you buy in China, usually you buy kind of from everywhere. To give you just an example, in my case, we have a customer that we buy for him security clothes in Hebei, close to Beijing. We buy for him tools in Zhejiang, which is south of Shanghai. And we buy, for example, lighting product in Guangzhou. So Guangzhou, which is around, which is Canton. Okay, so this drawing is to show you the controlled quality in the purchasing process. So here you can have an idea of the entire purchasing process. I have just a map for you. And sorry, technical issues. Okay, so here, here you have the, so I get back. Yeah, so you can see the control quality in the entire purchasing process. So as I told you before, VMAX China take care of all the purchasing process. So it's basically all you can see in that drawing from the very first point, identifying the need, to the shipment to Europe. So first you look for the suppliers, then you ask for a quotation, minimum order quantity. You get samples, you visit and shortlist factories, you visit them to make sure that they actually exist and to make sure they are as professional as you think. And once you're satisfied with that, you can pass your order. You ask for a prototype to make sure they can produce the exact product, to check the packaging, to check the logo, printing quality, everything. If they actually pass that, then you start the production. At the very end of that process, it's the controlled quality to actually make sure that what you are getting is what you paid for. It's what you ordered. Once you pass that quality control, would basically mean that someone is going to the factory to check all the goods before they leave the factory, because once they left the factory, there's not much you can do. I'm going to explain you that a bit later as well. Once they pass that controlled factory, they are sent to the port, put in container, and then shipped to Europe. As simple as that. So control quality, as I explained you, it's basically just sending someone to the factory, check the product to make sure you get what you paid for. But obviously, you're gonna need to do that to make sure that you are getting the right order, that you are getting the right quantity. But there is also a very important point that you have to keep in mind. First, in China, when you buy something, most of the suppliers gonna ask you to pay before shipment. So that means that once the goods left the factory, it's already paid, and there is nothing you're gonna be able to do if you wait until your goods arrive in Europe to get your money back if you actually realize there is an issue. It's going to be very, very difficult to seek redress against a supplier from Europe if your supplier is in China. And you also have to prove that it was broken or it was non-compliant before it left the factory, because otherwise it's going to be your words against theirs. And you have to show your suppliers that you are watching always. It sounds a bit weird, but the first order, usually when you order in China, the first order gonna be good. The main problem with buying from Chinese factory will be the consistency. You have to show them that you're watching, otherwise your supplier will lower its quality at some point. Here are the main points of the control quality. So of the quality control, so that's just an overview. Basically, you have to check the visual. So does it look like what you order? Is it the same product? Is it the same color, the same customization, whatever you ask for? Then does it work? So you just have to, if for example you bought a light, just make sure that you can turn it on and that it makes light. Control the norms and certificates, which is quite a sensitive point. So you have to be sure that they're going to send it to you before you pass your order. And once you get it, make sure that you actually that the name on the certificates is the same name that the factory you are buying for, because sometimes they're going to send you complete random certificate. And then you have to make sure that they make good internal checks. So I'm going to explain you that with a small example. It's just an example that we are working for on my company. We buy, for example, ratchet. So the ratchet, it's supposed to support 5 tons. I'm not going to be able, if I go to the factory, to make sure, I'm not going to be able to control myself that it can support 5 tons. Because to do that, you have to break your product. So you're not going to do that with an order. So you have to make sure that they have a team of technicians that are doing that and that they have a labo to do it. So you're gonna have to ask them how they did it and to see which machine they are using. I'm gonna explain that a little bit later. That's called stressing control, and that's a very important point. So that's the common rules of controlling. It's basically you control 1% of what you ordered. And then on those 1%, if 10% or more is not compliant, then you're going to have to recontrol everything, like every single goods on your order. But obviously it depends on your product. If you're buying, I don't know, 1 truck, obviously you're going to control 100% of what you bought. It really depends, and obviously it's also on what you decide. If you want the factory to control more, if you want the company that is in charge of your quality control to control more than that, you can always ask for it. So here is on the image, the 2 images that you can see, it's an example of a control report, because the company that is in charge of your control quality has to send you a report within 24 hours. Because obviously if you have something wrong with your order, you have to fix the problem very soon. Otherwise, it's going to delay the departure. So very easy. The control report is made of measurement, picture, and obviously comment, so you're able to understand what's going on. So basically, the controlled quality is just a process, and you are the one that know what is really important to be controlled, which are the sensible points. So you're gonna have to use your technical expertise with the control company, the control quality company experience about control to assess what needs to be controlled, what's important or not.
Clotilde, I just have a question regarding this. If there is any litigation here in China, who would be responsible for the lack of compliance of the product?
Well, it depends what type of contract you sign with the factory and with the control quality company, obviously. Most of the time, if you sign a contract with your control quality company, which I recommend you to do, they're gonna be responsible for every product that has been controlled. Mm-hmm. So that's mean if when your order arrive and they control 100%, which you agreed on before the control quality, if those 1% are compliant and they actually made their job right, then you're gonna have to your issue is the factory, because basically the control company did their job. Okay. But if you actually open the boxes that they controlled, because normally they have a stamp and they're supposed to stamp every boxes that they controlled. So if you open those boxes and you actually realize that they are non-compliant, that the goods are non-compliant, then that means that company didn't do its job, and then you're gonna have like the issue come from the control quality company.
Okay.
So to get back to the slide, excuse me. Yeah, so even if you have the best controlled quality in the world, if the production is bad, you're gonna lose a lot of time and sometimes money, because obviously you're gonna ask your suppliers to fix the problem, which will probably delay the departure. And at the end, you risk to accept low to bad quality goods to avoid to waste more time and more money. And for the next order, obviously, because that means that supplier is not good enough, you're going to have to look for another one, and you're going to have to restart from the very beginning all over again. So you remember that purchasing process slide that I showed you. You're going to have to redo everything. Obviously, you want to avoid that because that's a waste of time. So the key point here is to choose the right partner. And I will explain you how to do it just after, sorry. And obviously, once you choose the right partner, you have to make sure you understand how they work, and you're gonna have to work with them in compliance with the Chinese culture. You're gonna have to work in the Chinese way, and that can be quite challenging for European. We're gonna see that in the next part of the presentation. So here, this slide and the next one are pictures of a factory. Those two factories do the same thing. They do soap. So this one is a good factory. As you can tell, it's quite clean. It's organized. They have a modern, good machine. On the next one, I chose exactly the same kind of factory, so making soap as well, and the same kind of picture. So it's dirty, completely disorganized. The machines are really old. Looks like everything's gonna break down. Obviously, that's not the factory you want to work with. And you're not gonna be, most of the time, it's quite hard to realize that before they actually send you pictures or before you get there. So you have to make sure that you're not working with someone like that. And that's why it's really important to choose well your factory before you even before you pass your order and before you do the quality control. Because once you pass your order, it's too late.
Do we have any solution or any way to make it recognized? If, for example, a factory, we want to work with a factory and they send the picture that is on the bottom right of your slide, then it seems to be a quite well factory.
Yeah, a little bit better than the two others pictures, yeah.
But in fact, it's not this one.
Yeah, well, one. And that's gonna happen quite often.
That's my guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the main issue. You need someone to go there for you, because it's quite complicated to realize that before you actually visit. Sometimes they're gonna have like team working on communication and marketing, and they're gonna speak good English. And once you actually discover the factory, you're really surprised.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's only a soap factory. So imagine if what you're buying is a bit more technical and it's a little bit more dangerous, obviously, just to show you how important it is to choose the right partner. So when you're gonna visit your factory, some of them are gonna be very easy to delete from your list, obviously, if it's like the one on the picture. But also, I guess you want to avoid that, because imagine you go to China just to visit factories like that, you're gonna be quite disappointed. But then, if you are visiting factory and you can't really make your decision, you can't really tell if you want to work with them, what you really have to focus on, it's, well, first the visual, which is easy. Is it clean? Is it big? Is it a big factory? Because a big factory means that the quality is going to be stable. What are the working conditions? So when you see the workers, are they wearing gloves? Are they wearing glasses, mask if it's needed? Is it safe for them to work there? Then have a look if the factory is automated, because if there is machine, obviously that means investment. So that means the factory is quite big and it's making money, and it's a factory that is durable because they invested money on machine. So they see far away in the future. And machine means stable quality, because people can make mistake. Machine usually are pretty stable. And also, what you should have a look at is big names. Look around you, look at packaging, look at the samples you can see. You can even ask, because usually Chinese suppliers don't have any problem with tell you this kind of things. Can you see names of your competitors, or can you see names of big European company, European suppliers? Sometimes that means that you're already buying from that company without knowing it. So that is just a proof of good quality, because those products, if they are already in Europe, you know what they are, you know their value. Then you should have a look on how do they control. They should control 100% of the production several times during the production during the production process. So functioning and visual, pretty logical, but they should do statistic control and stress testing. So it's what I told you before. It's basically trying the product until it breaks. So you do that. Of course, it's only statistical, but you have to do that on every single order. So you have to make sure that they do it. You need to ask them to see how they process that. That's stress testing control, as to see the lab and things like that. And ask if every product has a serial number, a file. Because if you have a problem with your product, they should be able to have access to this file and to see when it was produced, where does the problem come from, for example, for the warranty or for the post-sale support. So ask question about that. So here the main idea is to ask question. You see if they know what they're talking about. See how they react. It's the best way to test them. It's the best way for you to go to gauge how professional they are. Be careful though, sometimes you'll be in front of a salesman that actually have no technical skills. It doesn't mean the factory is bad, it just means that the person in front of you is quite unprofessional. It happens. Make sure you have a manager in front of you, someone that is able to take decision and someone that has technical skills. So it may sound quite obvious, but the way you do business in China is not the same way that you do business in Europe. So once you have shortlisted your factory and you find the right supplier, you're going to have to work together. That can be quite challenging. So if you plan on working long-term with your suppliers, you will have to pay attention to the cultural aspect and build a strong relationship with them. And it has to be their way, because you are buying in China. So the communication is a key point. So you're going to have to make sure you understand each other. That starts from the order, before you even pass the order, when you negotiate prices, but also if you want to keep working together, if you want to make sure that they keep the same quality, the same service, or for example, if you want to have exclusive rights, you have to make sure you maintain that relationship. Otherwise, the first best opportunity they have, they're going to go with your competitor. So about the communication and the culture, I just wanted to give you an example to illustrate that, which is the two different games, so the Western game of chess and the Chinese game of Go, Weiqi, because it illustrates quite well the way we think and the way we communicate in Western versus China. In the Go game, the main goal is to control the game by conquering territories. So participants will try to surround the other player's pawn, thus make them prisoners. Whereas in chess, even if you, you have direct confrontation, not always obviously, but even if you don't have a direct confrontation with the other participant pawn, your goal is purely to delay them from the game, which is really different from the Go game. It's much more straightforward. So to link it with the culture, where Westerners going to be very direct and straightforward, Chinese will avoid direct confrontation, just like in the Go game. The strategy is to turn around to get rid of any other option, and that's the way Chinese communicate. So you may find it hard to communicate with Chinese if you don't fully understand that. They won't say no. You're never gonna have a direct answer, especially if they disagree. So yes, they're gonna tell you yes. That means they heard you. That means they understood what you want. They understood what you said, but that doesn't mean they agree. So you have to make sure that if you hear yes, it's not just a okay yes. That's an agreement. And the Mandarin actually illustrate that quite well, because in Mandarin, in Chinese language, you don't really have a yes or no. It's really linked to the situation. It depends on the question. It depends on the context. There is never a yes or no in China. Everything is negotiable. So obviously it can be very convenient sometimes, but it can also be very tiring. So you just have to keep in mind that you need to be patient and don't confront them. And then the next point that is really important about Chinese culture and Chinese way of doing business is what we call guanxi. So that refers to network or relationship in English. It's very central in the Chinese culture. So that basically means that people associate themselves to the others regarding the hierarchy, regarding the structure of the society. So for example, you will hear Laoban in restaurant, shop, markets. You hear that a lot in the street. That means they are talking to the boss of the restaurant or the boss of the shop. It's a way to show their respect. The structure here is very important, and there is a lot of small rules to structure the Chinese society. Guanxi also means reciprocity, mutual obligation. So you do something for someone, that someone's going to give it back to you. And that's how networks and trust are built in China. The trust is quite different from our point of view. In Western, I would say that we trust because we consider that someone is serious, because he's professional. Here, you trust an individual because he's part of your network or because he's part of your extended network. He's one of your friends, or he's a friend of a friend, the uncle of a friend, and you know basically where it comes from. So that's why you trust him. That means that if you have guanxi in China, you're powerful. You know people and you can get things, but obviously you're gonna have to give it back. And the last point about guanxi means also that the Chinese network are mixed. They're overlapping. So in Western world, we tend to have friends, colleagues, and family, which are like three different networks, and they don't really mix with each other. In China, everything is completely mixed. Your friends are your colleagues, your family are the people you also work with. All the networks are completely mixed. So to link all that to business, because that's obviously the main point here, Chinese are very business oriented. So working with them at the beginning should be quite easy. You probably find it fine, not too complicated. But you have to keep in mind that they won't promise you anything, and they might sell to your competitors at the first opportunities. You have to be very careful and make sure you are working closely with them, maintaining the relationship. Otherwise, you're going to lose very quickly what you have built. For example, that could be lose your exclusivity, or they might sign an exclusivity with someone else. They could raise their price. They could lower their quality down, which happens very, very often in China. Or they might do the after sales service or the warranty that they were supposed to, or what they did before. So still, it's like lowering their quality. Chinese business partners are friends. They come from the same network. So you need to build that, or you need to have someone building that for you. Just to give you an example, even from Europe, you will find it probably easier to fix a problem with someone that you know, with someone that you sometimes have lunch with, or that if it's just someone that you exchange email, for example, that you never met in person. Just consider that it's exactly the same in China, but it's just much more important. It's just absolutely extended. So for example, and if you ever work with China, actually I ask you a question. I don't know if we got the answer. I ask you if you worked with China before and if the experience was successful.
We didn't launch the poll actually yet because, well, we are facing some issue regarding the sound.
Okay.
But we can actually launch the poll maybe right now. Well, the question is a quite simple one, but we would like just to know whether you already had any experience in China or not, and if yes, if this was successful or just a nightmare for you. So we will launch the poll right now, and you just have to click on the answer that is yours. So Clotilde, I'm really sorry because there was some trouble regarding the sound, but fortunately this has been recorded, so all the participants will be able to get the record and the PPT, so you will still have some feedback, and I'm pretty sure that you will have some questions later on because they were not able to ask them right now.
Okay.
So did we get some answers?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Still 1 minute. Well, I can just keep going. So regarding that question, I just wanted to know if, as some of you have already been working in China, and if it was a successful experience or not, regarding what I explained, for example, regarding the communication problem that you might have working with Chinese factories, or what is the yes? Worked in
They had an experience.
Oh, okay. That's the first question.
Yeah, it's the first question.
Okay. So for those who work with China already, as I can see, 64% of you, you probably had some business Chinese dinner already. So you probably have seen quite a lot of those rules regarding the structure, regarding the hierarchy. So that's an example of what you have to do to build a relationship in China when you're doing business here, especially with factories. It's really important. So you're gonna have to do those baijiu, like quite alcoholic dinner with them. And there is a couple of small rules to follow, like when you cheer with them, they're gonna put their glass underneath yours, and you're supposed to do the same, because that show you respect, that show that you consider them as superior. So I don't know if we got the answer about the.
Yeah, it seems that it has changed from the beginning, and it seems that people had some successful experience.
So 60%, yeah. Well, that's a good news.
Yeah.
So I guess for the communication it was all right. I hope it was long term and not just for one shot, because obviously, as I told you, sometimes it's really easy to pass the first order, and the problem is to get the same quality all over again when you keep working with the same supplier. And also because you might ask for more because it's the second order, because that's the way we do business in Western world. But if you ask for more, for example, with factory, if you actually negotiate prices, they're gonna tell you yes, but because it's cheaper, they're not gonna give you the same quality. That's one of the main problem. So I hope it didn't happen to you. And if it was 60% of you are successful, I hope that it was on the long term. So that's basically the end of my presentation. That's it for the. I'd like to change the slide. So that's it for the purchasing process in China. I hope you know a bit more about how the purchase work in China and how it works from Chinese factories from that perspective, from that point of view. I hope you understand all the aspects and challenges I just wanted to add that from my perspective, the only way to be successful is to understand both culture. And that's why in my company, in VMX China, we have both Chinese and European team, Chinese and European staff, so people fully understand both sides. And that's it. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get question if there were some technical problems.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you will have some later on.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, we can probably provide all attendees your email address so that they can contact you.
Yeah, of course. It's on the last
PowerPoint.
slide. Yeah, so they can just contact me directly. Okay. And I can send the slide as well. I don't know if they get it.
They will send it, the USME Center will send it directly to all attendees. So thank you very much, Clotilde, and again, sorry for this technical
problem.
Well, I'm pretty sure that this will make people think about how to handle this in China, and maybe to come back to you later.
Okay, thank you very much, Adai.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye everybody.